All right, so welcome back everybody to our latest episode of The Nest. Once again, we had a packed week of sports news, which we will discuss today. And joining me for today's episode are Anirban Chakraborty, Ravi Bajpai, and Rohan Venkatesh. How is everyone doing?
Good to be here as always.
Excited. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, we are going to discuss 4 topics today, and we will allocate 10 minutes per topic. So the first one, let's get right into it. Chris Sale of the Boston Red Sox, out for the season after breaking his wrist in a bicycle accident. So let's just talk about that first. Let's just hear the initial thoughts. Rohan, I know.
Wow,
we have some discussion.
I know. Look, I know that there was that it was already kind of a remote possibility that whether Chris Sale would come back or not. I mean, my whole take on it is that I mean, he already had pretty much his pinky almost broken off. I mean, by that liner that he took from Aaron Hicks a few weeks ago. I mean, but let's just put everything into perspective. This entire season, he has pitched 5 2/3 innings, and that first start where he pitched 5 innings, I mean, he pitched well, but the Red Sox ended up losing that game. But then he went for a short while against the Yankees, and it pretty much just went downhill from there. And if you look at Chris Sale's history, he didn't pitch 2020. He had Tommy John surgery, and he's been through a lot. And just you take all of that, and then you add in this bike accident thing. It just really it just seems like a perfect storm hitting Chris Sale in all directions. Now, for the Red Sox as an organization as a whole, whether getting him back would have helped or not, I'm not quite sure, because I think that right now the weakest spot for the Red Sox is the bullpen. But even if you fix that, I think there's something like 7 in the wild card race right now, and they're almost a good 5 games out of a playoff spot, with several teams crowded in there as well. And they're a sub 500 team. I mean, granted, they did beat the Yankees last night. That was a good victory, but overall they've just been really mediocre. I mean, also the Yankees have kind of slipped up recently as well. But overall, overall, I mean, benching Sale for the rest of the season, making sure he's healthy for next year, I don't see that as a bad option, right? Even if this didn't happen, whether he would have come back or not would have been questionable. And even if he did come back, I'm not quite sure if that really would have made a difference in the Red Sox playoff prospects, because the way I see it, they're pretty much out of it right now. I mean, it's not impossible, but I see it as a very remote possibility for them to come back. So I think the Red Sox, if they just want to set themselves up ideally for next year, they would concentrate on his health, concentrate on rehabbing him. I know there's already been talk about oh my God, was this the worst signing ever? No, he was the guy behind the 2018 World Series team, and he still, to a large part, I mean, when whatever little we did see of him, he looked like the Chris Sale of the past. So I don't see any issues with Chris Sale or the stuff that he's got. So it's just an unfortunate incident, and well, I guess this is just something that the Red Sox and Chris Sale are going to have to deal with going forward. But I'm just hoping that he's healthy for next year.
I mean, I will just say one thing, because the 5-year contract he signed in 2019 was after the World Series. And maybe at the time I was actually in favor of it, because, I mean, in 2017, he was excellent, 300 strikeouts. And then 2018, he was good until he got kind of hurt. And then he had to kind of come out of the bullpen at the end in October for the most part. And he was good. 2017 and 2018 were acceptable. But 2019 is really when I sort of saw the wheels come just under the bus for this whole deal. And since then, it's just unfortunately been one incident after another. And that's where it just sort of gets a little frustrating now, because the Red Sox, we keep hearing every year, oh, wait until 2021, wait until 2022, he's going to be fully healthy and ready to go. We keep hearing this now, but every year something sort of happens at this point, which gets really frustrating, to sort of watch and hear the same thing. And you really have to kind of wonder now, sort of going forward, the Red Sox are looking at it in this perspective now. The Red Sox still have 2 years of Chris Sale's contract left and owe him $55 million. And knowing everything that's happened the last few years, how can you confidently say he's going to make it out of next season, even fully healthy? At this point, he's become more of a liability health-wise.
Because these are all independent events. This is the same as the gambler's fallacy, right? You're losing in the past, you think you're going to lose in the future. You're winning in the past, you think you're going to win in the future. No, these are independent events, and these are not connected in any way. Okay, I mean, yeah, he takes a line drive to the pinky. That's bad luck, right? Okay, he gets
that is bad luck, but
bike accident, that happens. Bad luck. These things happen, right? they're not. It's not like it's not like, oh my god, it's happened. So somehow Chris Sale is injury prone. No, that's totally the wrong way of looking at it.
I mean, isn't that what injury prone is, where it's a lot of bad luck that ends up accumulating over time? Isn't that what we say about Jimmy Garoppolo? Different instance, right? Every year he gets injured at some point.
No. Injury prone is if there's if there's a systematic risk that makes injury much more likely. I don't. This is not the case with Chris Sale. All of his injuries have been bad luck.
Okay, that is just not true at all. I would say like 2019, the first case of his like serious injuries in with the Red Sox, that was elbow inflammation that required him to get to the 60 DL. He broke his rib. He had to get Tommy John. He had a second setback when he was, rehabbing from his injury in spring training. Now I think it's very clear to see that this man is made of glass, and those are all like, partially attributable to him being like very, very injury risk. I would say all of them. The line drive, I'll concede that, and maybe the biking incident to some extent, though I think he could have shown better judgment in, your pinky's already injury. Let's just not do anything that could potentially like hurt my pinky or hand in any way. But yeah, I think Chris Sale is I think Chris Sale. I would call Chris Sale injury prone, and I don't see how you could possibly call him not injury prone.
Yeah, I agree. Like I like the player. Like, I mean, when he's playing, like the Red Sox are a better team. I concede that, but it just gets very frustrating since 2019. Like, okay, good. Thank you for 2017 and 2018, but you signed the contract in 2019, right? So going forward, there should also be high expectations. Since he signed that contract in 2019, a 5-year, $145 million extension in March of 2019, he has made just 11 starts. 11 starts in 4 seasons, right? Yeah, the contract actually began in 2020, which he missed anyway, right? Due to Tommy John surgery. So in 3 seasons since that contract kicked in, he has only made 11 starts, like I guess total, including 2019, that's just concerning overall, like everything that's just sort of going on. That's not just a recent unlucky trend. Unlucky would be 1 year it happens and that he's back the next season. But it seems like every year, like he's out for an indefinite period of time. So at this point, if I'm
that's the gamble you take when you sign when you have these massive contracts, right?
The other thing
sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. You can't fault the player.
I'd like to share though is that one, the stat that's most alarming to me is we paid $90 million for 48 innings from Chris Sale over the course. And then the second thing that the second thing that I'd like to add is, we've talked about, coming out of 2018, we want to extend Chris Sale. And I would totally agree with you guys that, we had to extend him after his playoff performance, his great 2017 season. Even if he's injury prone, I would 100% make the case that we had to extend him. The thing that I would, maybe debate and in retrospect might not have been good is giving him a 5-year extension. I think that could have been too long, and especially given this injury risk, we don't know what he's playing at the end of how he'll be playing at the end of this contract, and given this injury risk, I think he's much more risky. And honestly, during the prime years of the contract, we haven't gotten that much out of him either. So I think that's where, in retrospect, we might be like we there is some regret there. So definitely extend him, but I think we're seriously going to regret the length of the extension that we took with him.
Yeah, I guess it's I mean it's unfortunate. I think many teams often have the case where you sign someone for a long time. I mean, I will say the Yankees of course know with Alex Rodriguez what happens when you give long-term contracts that don't really pay off. But I would say, I can understand why the decision was made, like Rafi said, back in 2019, and now it kind of remains to be seen what exactly is going to happen when he comes back. I guess the one caveat is that it's even maybe if Chris Sale was really healthy this season, I do kind of wonder how much of an impact it would really make compared to really the extreme problems that we've had with our bullpen, as Rohan mentions. I mean, Darvinson Hernandez has really struggled, for example, like a 21 ERA right now for like 7 games. We've had players like Matt Barnes 6.75, Brian Bello with 8.47. Ryan Brazier has kind of been like kind of a less of a bright spot. But the point is, I mean, I think we all know this season that the Red Sox pitching woes have been a huge part of our inability to really move up the charts in the AL East. So, I do kind of feel like it would be kind of a band-aid on really a massive wound at this point, even if Chris Sale was healthy this season.
Well, I will say, like, I mean, that still doesn't like mean that, like, I mean, even if the season isn't going the way you expect, you still expect him to be healthy. And sort of, you would at least hope that he's healthy and ready to go, right? A rotation with Chris Sale, Nathan Eovaldi, at least leading the way, that's a pretty good starting two rotation if you're healthy. So even if like the bullpen is struggling, like it's sort of like, yeah, Robbie, wait, I don't know, you're just
And Marty,
laughing.
I gotta say, if you start naming what a good starting rotation is, and you have to stop at the second pitcher, and one of them is injured, it's not it's not good.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, I think Evaldi and Sale, like, I mean, as the first two, like, those are at least leading the rotation. That's usually like what you would expect out of an ace, right? Your all stars, like, I mean, they're both all stars, right? So that's why I sort of say that. I mean, obviously, the rest of the rotation's been kind of, unfortunately, Michael Wacha, right? He was pretty good until he got hurt. So, I mean, he's also there. Like, I mean, if a starting rotation with a trio, which is what a playoff rotation anyway ends up like, right? In the playoffs, it's usually your top 3-4 starters. So if you had Sale, Evaldi, Wacha, and I don't remember who your fourth, maybe Winkowski, someone else, or Rich Hill. Yeah, I'm forgetting about Rich Hill. A lot of these guys have been injured for so long now. I'm forgetting who's on the team.
Does anyone remember James Paxton, who is technically on our team?
I've been hearing about that name all year, that he's going to come up any moment now. So maybe that's the thing. I'm just frustrated by like the whole season. And like maybe I wouldn't be that frustrated about Chris Sale if it was just like an isolated incident, but like, this is the same guy who just does so much stuff. So I think it just sort of compounds everything with the team. Like just a month ago, he destroyed a TV in a minor league clubhouse. And he said like he didn't really even apologize for it fully. Like I know he replaced it, but it's like this sort of behavior, like I just sort of see it as like a pattern. And like it's not that he's a bad teammate or anything like that, but I just sort of feel like when it's just all these incidents over time and compounded with the thing that they're in last place still. So like it's just a lot of these things have just gone wrong. So I don't know. I'm just not very optimistic that in 2023 things will.
Wait. You can't simultaneously blame Chris Sale and then blame him for the fact that the Red Sox are in last place for a team that Chris Sale hasn't played on. That's just an intellectually inconsistent argument.
No, you can say that by him not being there, the Red Sox are in last place, right? Because he didn't put himself in a position.
So that would actually be an argument in favor of Chris Sale, because you're basically saying that with Chris Sale, this team would be a lot stronger.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't we all agree with that?
Yeah, but it seems like, so I guess the point here is that we shouldn't really be going after Chris Sale, right? We shouldn't really.
No, we should be going after Chris Sale because he's such a good player for the team.
Well, just to clarify, I don't think anyone's doubting his quality. What we're saying, I think that the problem here, like, is that we know he's good. It's just that he's choosing, or not choosing, just that he's unable to play. So we're not able to access his skill, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like for the Nets, like Kyrie Irving, it's not a problem with him being a great basketball player. It's just that for reasons completely different, by the way, than Chris Sale's, he just was never available. So you're depriving the team of the talent while they're paying you money that, if you weren't there, then they'd give it to someone else who would actually play. I mean, I'm trying to remember which analyst. It's a pretty good quote. Said if you give me the choice between an extremely talented player who plays a third of the season and like a pretty average talent who plays every week, I'm going to go with that person who plays every week, because availability is key in sports. Availability more often than not trumps talent, because at the end of the day, if you're only really good for a third of the games, that's not really going to help you for a year-long season.
Yeah, Bill Belichick used to say availability is the best ability.
Well, that doesn't apply to starting pitchers because they pitch once every 5 games.
Well,
So
okay, but
they're capped off at 1/5 of the season.
That's still 30 starts that you're getting.
I mean, Anirban was talking about a third of the season. Starting pitchers go at most a fifth of the season.
Well, that's during the regular season, but playoffs they go. They can play every day.
A quarter, because I think they usually play once every 4 games in the playoffs.
Well, not if they go out of the bullpen.
Yeah,
I assume Anirban is referring to someone who plays a third of the season for starting pitchers, who would mean off the entire season in which they're pitching 1 and 5, like they are actually available for 1 and 3, so a 15th, if you will.
Yeah, that would be a different story.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
I
by the
mean,
way,
we're
we are
using,
well
I
over
mean, we are
time.
five games behind in the AL East. I mean, think about it this way: could he have gotten maybe 5 more games if Chris Sale was available for 5 games this year? Yeah, like it comes down to the margins, right? So even if it's like a 15th of the season, that can be the difference in our case between playoff spot and watching from TV.
I guess so. I mean, even if you compare like the most lopsided division races, even if you take like teams that are like last place is like 20 games behind first place, like that's still an eighth of the season, which in the grand scheme of things looks small, but 20 games does look like a lot on the standings. But as the point taken though from on your bundle, that it is all about the margins, and we'll see where the Red Sox go moving forward.
Okay. All right. Next topic now. We are actually 5 minutes over time, which is not good. Okay. Let's go to the Chicago Bears. So Roquan Smith has demanded a trade from the Chicago Bears. Interesting argument. So I don't know. Like, what do you guys think? Do you think like he's someone you think the Patriots should go after?
So I really hate to break it to you, but Roquan Smith is not coming to New England, and and here's why: because he's owed $9 million on his 5th year. And let's take a quick look through the salary spreadsheet for next season. 9 million would put him right at about 6th highest on the pay sheet. All right. And just for context, the 4 highest are all offensive players: Mac Jones, Johnny Smith, Hunter Henry, and Nelson Aguilar. Then we got Devon Gotcha. And then you're going to tell me that Roquan's going to come in here and get more money than Devin McCourty. He's going to get more money than Jalen Mills, Kendrick Bourne, Matt Judon.
Should.
There are no linebackers even anywhere sniffing close to 9 million on the Patriots.
But
There's no way Roquan Smith
just
is going to take
because
9
that's
million.
how our salary sheet works now doesn't mean that if we got him on 9 million, it would be a good deal in your bond.
Have we seen Bill Belichick being willing to break the wage structure like that for a linebacker? I've yet to see it. In fact, we saw that the whole issue with the pay chart was one of the reasons we were so frustrated with the Patriots offseason just a few months ago. So what are the odds of them paying 9 million to him when, just for context, the linebacker making even close to that money is probably, well, it is Matt Judon, which is 13 million. But other than that, it's no one else.
Yeah. I mean, I think overall, like, it's not just. I mean, I think it's also just he wants to be the highest paid linebacker in the game. And that's actually Shaquille Leonard of the Indianapolis Colts. He signed a 5-year, $99.25 million contract last season. So that's kind of the starting point for Roquan Smith. So, yeah, I don't think Bill Belichick will be paying $20 million to Roquan Smith when he didn't even want to pay $15 million to Tom Brady during the heyday of his Patriots career. So, I mean, but that said, I think it is interesting where he ends up. I think one team is definitely going to pony up the money, give it to him, and
I know the Steelers could use him. The Steelers could probably use him, but I mean, I really don't think the Patriots are gonna want to go after him. I also don't think that he would be a good fit in New England, right? I just don't think that he would be a good fit for Belichick's coaching style, right? I mean, like for Belichick, it's all about like focusing on the team as a whole, like not yourself, just like doing your job. And of course, I mean, like Roquan Smith, sorry. Like I know he's had issues with the team, but I mean, like he's gone about it. He's gone about it in maybe like some unconventional ways, right? He's apparently been having people negotiate on his behalf who are not licensed agents. Now, is that just a technicality or is that some sort of grave violation of the rules? I'm not quite sure, but I mean, a week or two ago on the show, we discussed like tampering and Tom Brady and all that stuff. I mean, that potentially sets up a case where if people who are not authorized to speak end up arranging potential deals or try to alter the market in some kind of way, it could potentially set up allegations of tampering. Now, I mean, we have talked about this in the past, that sometimes it gets enforced, sometimes it doesn't. And it is curious about when they choose to enforce it and when they don't, and whether when they choose to enforce it, whether it's actually just a pretext for something else. But it is kind of an interesting case because for a top linebacker like this one, I mean, there are many markets that would be interested in. I mean, Pittsburgh does seem to be kind of like kind of up there. But in terms of like New England, though, I think defensively, I think we're reasonably okay. I think granted, I mean, we could always use linebackers. I'm not denying that, but I just don't think that New England would be a good fit for him. That's just my personal opinion, though.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree that I think the fit is questionable, though. I think, given his skill and how young he is, we definitely, if we could get him at a good rate, we would. But I think at Nearbon's earlier point about how, the main issue why he's having trouble with the Bears is over money. He definitely wants more money. He wants to be paid, wants the pay to reflect what the current market is for a top linebacker. And I can't see Bill Belichick spending anywhere close to what he's demanding. So I don't think it's practical that he'd end up on the Patriots. As far as this whole tampering issue, I gotta say this is a really poor play on his part, on his party's part, because like Rohan pointed out, this would open, and if any team talks to this third party negotiate things that would be in violation of tampering, might be enforced, might not be, but it puts teams in a really awkward position in which they have to refuse his calls and or open themselves up to liability, and the Bears would certainly be very annoyed about this because they haven't let him look at a trade. So I think overall that just puts him in a really tough position with teams. Like they're like, no, please don't talk to us. Like we can't talk right now, and I can't imagine that's going to really help him find a new market. So hopefully, I think the Bears.
But I think he's
look at a
leaving though. I
deal.
mean, the question is where. I mean, like it is kind of curious though because the coach seemed to kind of throw him under the bus. I mean, the same coach who just a few weeks defended him, saying that this guy's professional, like he's a model for the team, is also now it's like, okay, he did not do anything at practice. I mean, and you'll have to ask him why. So it's a really like market change in tone. And I mean, if the coach is throwing him under the bus, I think the Bears as an organization are kind of setting themselves for a post Roquan future. If whatever that may be, I think they're already like setting themselves up for what that's going to look like. So now I don't know where he's going to go, but I think his days in Chicago are numbered.
It's just funny they use the term post Roquan future because usually, like, what do you say? Like, it's like the Roquan Smith era was like a 4-year time for the Chicago Bears where they made it to the playoffs twice, didn't win a playoff game. That's the Roquan Smith era for Chicago. It's just funny that you like mentioned it like a post Roquan era, like as if like he was some dominant player. The Bears enjoyed so much success under.
I mean, he's
Smith.
He's not top linebackers in the league for nothing. I mean, yeah, he may be on a pretty terrible team that's underperformed, but that's
but it's funny that like you put him in an era like the way you defined it, like a post Roquan era. It's almost as if like he's like one of the like greats of NFL history. Like he led the Bears to some dominant runs. The Bears, like, I mean, it's just funny like to just hear about it like that, like a post Roquan era. I'm gonna start using that more going forward. The post N'Keal Harry era for the Patriots. Like we could start talking about it like that. Like that would be fun. Like going forward,
or like find someone who's played like one game and be like post so and so era,
or the Christian Vasquez post Christian Vasquez era for the Red Sox. At least you won a World Series there.
I don't know, like who has like the shortest stint with the Red Sox? Like I don't know, like Darnell McDonald. I don't know. I'm just throwing random names out there.
I, for one, am very excited for the Tommy Pham era of the Red Sox. So,
fantasy football commissioner. Have you heard that story?
Nah.
Oh, he slapped Jock Peterson, who was then with the San Francisco Giants, over like a fantasy football dispute earlier this year. So.
Oh. Whoa. Okay.
He's a very passionate man. So Tommy Pham, he is on my fantasy baseball team actually. So.
Yeah,
okay. Tommy Pham and Christian Arroyo are really lighting it up for the Red Sox bats in the last week, but that's a different topic though.
Yeah, we've also gone back to the Red Sox, but yeah, I guess I can understand because the Chicago Bears are not a very exciting team. So okay, yeah, I think that might wrap up our discussion here, unless anyone else wants to contribute anything to this. Like I think, yeah, okay, yeah, no, that's fine. Next topic. It's about the Brooklyn Nets. So every week it seems like Kevin Durant, there's some story with Kevin Durant, but it's actually interesting because this week was actually very interesting. It actually caught my eye more than usual. So apparently there were a couple developments. Nets owner Joseph Tsai, he took the side of the front office and the coaching staff amid Kevin Durant's like trade rumors. And the other report, which really like kind of was like, wow. Apparently the Brooklyn Nets asked for both Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in trade discussions for Kevin Durant. So now all of us in the show had already discussed about how we didn't want to do Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant. So I can only imagine the response we get when now the Nets are like, hey, why don't you also add in Jason Tatum as well? I'm like, what are the Nets trying to do here? Like, do they like want this? Like, what are they trying to get done? Like, it seems like more and more obvious to me now that they're probably just going to go into the season with Kyrie, Kevin Durant, and Ben Simmons. Like, I mean, that's probably the most logical course for this team going into next season anyway. Like, they're still going to be a good team if everyone plays, but the big question is if, because last season we saw that those three never actually took the court at the same time because Ben Simmons didn't play a game. So I think
Man,
it's
if such a deal were to happen, this would just be highway robbery. But go on, sorry.
yeah, no, I agree.
I had to throw that. I had to throw that. I'm sorry. Like,
No. It's totally fine. No, I agree with you, Rohan. Is there anything else you want to say about this? Because like I feel like, yeah, no, go on. Like, I mean, I this is just sort of my initial thoughts. I think it's just
it's like, oh please, Nets. What do you want to take? No, Jaylen Brown, was that not enough? Oh, take more. Take everything. Take our whole dynasty. This whole prospect of a deal pretty much reeks of that. But at the same time, this soap opera has been going on for like the last few weeks. And it can't be going on for this long unless there's two to tango, which means that the Celtics are entertaining this. If the Celtics weren't entertaining this, this would have gone away a long time ago. I can almost guarantee you.
I think the
Why?
Celtics.
What are the Celtics doing here?
I think the Celtics were entertaining the Brown offer. I was actually the one person who was, mildly interested in a Brown for KD trade, controversially on this podcast. However, I would say, this offer is just so clearly like bad. I think it's exactly like we were kind of talking about the previous time we talked about this, where the Nets there's no market. They're trying to create a market, and they're actually like increasing the offers to like get people to be like, oh, Brown was actually cheap to get KD. Like, if they're talking about both the Celtic stars, like clearly he's very valuable, and they're really just trying to, create a market where it doesn't seem to exist at the asking price they're doing it. And honestly, I would say it's counterproductive to, have these offers in the media of Tatum and Brown, because if you're another team that's not the Celtics and you're like, the Nets are asking for Tatum and Brown, they're like, no way we're gonna do a trade. Like, I think the Nets are just like flailing around trying to create a market, and that's what we saw in the headlines this week.
Although, I mean, rumors that he wants to go to the Sixers, that would be pretty interesting, right? I mean, the Sixers could potentially become a super team, right? That duo, a potential duo of him and Joel Embiid would be like, I guess that would be pretty much like the equivalent of the Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown duo in Boston.
And think about it, KD and Harden on the same team, that'd be crazy, right? That would be like an all-time dominant team.
Oh yeah, that would essentially, that would pretty much amount to a big three. Him, Harden, and Joel Embiid.
Yeah, just like what we saw in Brooklyn last season. We saw that.
Yeah,
right?
that same big three, which won. Let's see, how many games did they win in that first round? Remind me of that.
James Harden wasn't actually on the Sixers by then, so it was actually just the big two.
But
well, the good news is, according to Bleacher Report, Kevin Durant and James Harden are back on good terms. So you know what that means. I mean, hey, I'm just gonna. Here's a little history lesson for you guys. Kevin Durant, 28.2 points a game. Russell Westbrook, 23.5 points per game. Serge Ibaka, 12.6 points a game. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm talking about the 2015-16 Thunder season, all right? The only sample size you really have of Kevin Durant going to a team when he didn't have 4 Hall of Famers playing with him in the starting 5, all right? And, I mean, last time I checked, I was watching that game actually from a hotel in Sacramento at the time. I remember watching them playing Game 6 against the Warriors. I was like, wow, this game's over, man. And then I come back, check the score. It wasn't over. They lost. So they lost the next game too. So like, what my point here is that there seems to be this idea that bring Kevin Durant to the Boston Celtics and you just get an automatic title the next season, title town. We're all in on this. Why are we doing this? This makes absolutely no sense. Why are we playing like a team that is throwing everything into 1 year and is willing to sacrifice draft picks and really our star for the next 5-6 years in Jaylen Brown for one shot at a title that we don't even know is going to happen? How exactly does that make any sense? It doesn't. So that's the first point. The second point is that I really don't think the Celtics are at all entertaining this anymore. I think in general, like this isn't exactly a new phenomenon where you see teams kind of kind of almost kind of using reporters' access to them to kind of peddle these narratives to really get the market going, like Ravi was talking about. I believe even if you look back, I'm sure the Celtics did something similar way back, or like they're probably involved in something similar when like Kevin Garnett was coming to the Celtics from the Timberwolves. But the point is here that again, like we talked about, like Ravi said, I think any GM like Brad Stevens is gonna, try to probe the waters a bit when Kevin Durant is available, and if that involves Jaylen Brown at the time, then so be it. But it's pretty obvious at this point that the Brooklyn Nets are really not interested in catering to Kevin Durant. I mean, we haven't even talked about the ultimatum he gave them that I'll stay if you get rid of Sean Marks and Steve Nash, right? Which, if you're Joe Tsai, the owner of the Nets, I mean, there's really no reason to even entertain this at all. So I really just don't think, even if like a player does everything right, really acts like in a really like in a way that kind of communicates to the franchise that they're really looking to like not leave them in the dust, that'd be one thing. But when they actively antagonize like literally everyone they're going to be interacting with, I mean, first of all, like that just lowers any incentive on the Nets to really do anything for him. And second of all, in the increasingly likely scenario that he plays for the next season, I mean, just imagine how chaotic that's going to be. I mean, last season we were talking about how Steve Nash had no leverage in the locker room. What's he going to have leverage over this season? He's going to have negative leverage because he knows Kevin Durant was effectively saying, "I don't even want you on this team anymore." So, I mean, unfortunately, I mean, I the way I see it ultimately, Kevin Durant's staying in Brooklyn, and I just think that's just going to be a really, really unfortunate and difficult season for the Brooklyn Nets because I just don't understand how they can have some locker room that's not utterly combustible.
Well, one other additional thing that I'd like to add between the Nets Celtics rumors is that one of the reasons why the Celtics are continuously brought up as a trade partner for the Nets is that they clearly want a lot of good assets for trading Kevin Durant, but they can't get a player who's on a rookie extension because they also got Ben Simmons. The Celtics are one of the teams in a very rare position in which they do have good trade pieces that aren't on a rookie max extension. So they could go to the Nets and still would be competitive if they gave up all those assets to get Kevin Durant. So I think that's the other reason to point out why they've been in the news so often. The other thing that I'd like to point out, which has been talked about on ESPN lately, but I agree with their point, is that there's an interesting suitor in the New Orleans Pelicans. They do have the assets between all the picks, and they also have Brandon Ingram, who I don't believe is on rookie max or would be eligible to be traded to the Nets. That as a potential, team that would be competitive, does have the assets to trade the Nets, would be a potentially interesting trade partner. However, the fact that they haven't been brought up makes me think that KD is also just trying to get like a it's in the media a lot, but the easy road of already top team joining an already top team that's much more proven in both the Sixers, the Celtics, the Suns have showed and gotten that. So yeah.
Yeah, just one other point I just like to address. Like, I never thought the day would happen where all of a sudden I'm actually siding with the owners of a team over the player. But I mean, I think it's happened here with Kevin Durant and Joseph Tsai, mainly because Joseph Tsai has basically done everything in his power to accommodate to Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, whether it was trading for James Harden, whether it was accommodating Kyrie being part-time until the New York vaccine mandate was lifted back in April. Like whether it was all of that, right? And he even was the one who fired he fired Kenny Atkinson and replaced him with Steve Nash, a coach who both Durant and Irving wanted. So Joseph Tsai and the Nets have done essentially everything that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving asked from them. And then now they want to get traded. Like if I'm the owner, I'm like, no, I'm absolutely not like listening to you now. I've done everything you wanted me to do. And how did you guys repay me? You got swept in the first round. You embarrassed us altogether. Like that's just unacceptable. Like overall, like for once, I'm actually siding with Joseph Tsai over the team because like what is this? Like I basically do everything you ask me to do. I'm okay with Kyrie being part-time. I'm okay with all of this. And to like basically like to reward me, you basically humiliate me by being the only team in the entire playoffs to be swept in the first round. Like what is this? Like, seriously, like, and now like you want to leave? All of a sudden, both of you want to leave, even though I've done everything in my power to like keep you guys here. Like, I did everything, right? Like, he's done literally everything he can. Like, I just feel this baffling altogether. Like, and so like, I don't know, like if I'm Joseph Tsai, I'm like, no, you have 4 years on your contract, KD. I've done everything in my power to make sure you're in a good situation. And this is the team you wanted to be at, right? So you got to stay here now. Both of you have to stay here, and we'll see what happens from here. But I'm not trading you, especially not unless I get a really good deal. So yeah, the Nets should be selective in who they go for. But I actually side with Joseph Tsai here. I mean, it's really rare for me to side with an owner over a player, because most of the time I do believe the player is right, but I don't believe the player is right over here. I don't believe KD just has the right to leave after he just created a massive like fire overall in Brooklyn now. Like, it's a dumpster fire in Brooklyn, largely because of all the situation that Kyrie and KD caused. So at this point, if I'm Joseph Tsai, I'm like, you started this fire, you have to put it out. I'm not going to just like let you leave and let someone else deal with this. You have to deal with this now. I mean, this is just ridiculous. This is not acceptable. So that's how I sort of look at it. And that's why I don't want Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. It just seems like wherever these guys go, it just seems like there's just a massive, like everything where they fall is just a massive, like wherever they go now, like right in Boston, we saw it, right?
I just see them. I just see both. I just see both of them as like drama machines. Like the last thing
exactly
the last teams want that any team wants is that.
So it's not just a drama machine, because LeBron James, you can also argue, is also big on drama. But here's the difference: LeBron James wins. Actually, Kevin Durant has only been able to win when he was with a stacked Golden State Warriors team that, oh yeah, just won the NBA championship without him. And Kyrie Irving only was able to win with LeBron James, right? That's it. So these guys are great players, but they've shown that they can't be the lead guy on a team altogether. So that's sort of my take on it. Like, I don't want either of these players unless like you're sort of able to get it in a good deal, but no Jaylen Brown and definitely no Jason Tatum. Like, I don't know what Brooklyn's trying to do. If I'm Brooklyn and I'm Joseph Tsai, I'm basically running it back this season with the team I have. And I mean, that's your best shot at this point, even if it's not a good situation to be in. That's your best shot.
Do you think there's any chance that, like, on paper, they are still a good team, that running it back will result in, anything, like even just like, a deeper playoff run than they've had the last 2 seasons?
Oh, I think they'll be deeper than last year. They might win like 1 game and lose in 5 in the first round. So I mean, that's possible. Maybe 6 if everyone sticks together. But who knows if Ben Simmons will even play in the playoffs? Like last year, they kept teasing us that Ben Simmons was going to be back for game 2, game 3, game 4, and then ultimately he didn't play a game. So I don't know. Like at this point, who knows, right? Like we've just seen that this team just sort of is very unpredictable, and that's sort of the situation that they got themselves into. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, yeah, if Kevin Durant wants to go to the 76ers, once again, team up with James Harden and Joel Embiid, that would be really interesting with Doc Rivers there now too, like sort of how that sort of handles out. Like that team on paper would be good, but I don't know, like the moment the Sixers lose or like lose 2 in a row, is Kevin Durant going to start complaining and then want to go to another team? Like, we don't know. Like, at this point, I'm just sort of like tired of the Kevin Durant situation. I'm just hopeful the Celtics don't make this trade for him. So yeah, okay. I think enough of, I don't know. I mean, does anyone else want to add anything else about Kevin Durant? Okay.
Keep the team as it is. I mean, the Celtics team got within 2 wins of winning the title last year. Don't make any drastic moves. Just keep it the way it is. Focus on improving the team as it stands right now. You got within 2 wins last year, and just improve yourself slightly, and you'll get there.
Also, I just want to point out one other thing. If the Nets were asking for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant, what makes the Sixers think that they can actually have James Harden, Embiid, and Kevin Durant play on the same team together? Like, what makes you think that when the Nets would probably ask for Joel Embiid in response? So
because KD wants to go there, and KD has a lot of leverage.
I don't think he has leverage. He has 4 years on his contract still. What's he going to do? Sit out?
Potentially.
Sit out for 4 seasons and then be 38?
Potentially.
I mean, that's not possible, right? 4 years of not playing, and then you just come back at age 38. That's not going to happen. So he has to play, right?
I mean, withholding your labor is another method of exercising your leverage.
Good. So you can play. I mean, if I'm Joseph Tsai, I'm not calling that bluff. That's a bluff. 4 years of not playing is, I wouldn't buy that. Maybe for the year I could kind of be a little bit more nervous, but 4 years left on the contract, I don't think that's gonna be an issue. But
I mean, I don't think KD is beyond doing something like that.
4 years. I mean, I don't know, like holding out for 4 years, like holding out for a season, we've seen that before, but it hasn't turned out well. So I can't imagine someone holding out for 4 years.
KD, I mean, knowing KD, he is willing to play hardball.
No one is willing to hold out for 4 years. I think even the team would be willing to deal with 4 years too. So I think if you can hold out for like a season and like a fraction of the second season, like I'm sure both parties would just be so unbelievably frustrated something would happen.
Yeah, okay. But let's go to our last topic. Just broke yesterday. Fernando Tatis Jr. suspended 80 games for a PED violation. A big blow to the San Diego Padres, who had just acquired Juan Soto. So, I mean, let's just talk about this. I mean, I just want to just preface it by saying back in 2021, he signed a 14-year, $340 million contract extension with the Padres. So that's gone off to a great start, as we can already see here, missing the whole season. So yeah, I mean, just a terrific start for the Padres altogether in the contract. I mean, I'm sure they're looking forward to next year already.
I'm actually like willing to go to the extent that the Padres are probably in a worse spot now than they were before the trade deadline. A week ago, I would have said the opposite, considering that they got Juan Soto. But if you look at, I mean, the additions are from the Padres standpoint, the additions are Juan Soto, and the subtractions are now Tatis. And
well, the additions are definitely more than Juan Soto. You're forgetting about Hader and Josh Bell, both of which are outstanding players.
Yeah, I gotta include them as well. But the subtractions are Tatis and I guess Eric Hosmer if you want to include that. But overall, I mean, I think it's at best a break-even deal for the Padres. I mean, if this thing hadn't happened, it would have been a great deal. But I'm surprised. I'm surprised that the Padres didn't have any kind of like foresight into any of this. I guess when these things happen, it catches everyone by surprise. I don't know how often these players are tested, but I guess they get tested routinely, or sometimes they do. And then when these things happen, I guess it comes to the surprise of everyone except for possibly Tatis and whoever administered those PEDs. So you know. This is just the latest example of the PED rules, of the enforcement of it, and of course, baseball is strive to do a better job in enforcing it against everyone. I mean, we know notably in the past, I mean, players like A-Rod, he got busted for PEDs, and so I mean, there's several other players got busted as well, right? But I guess this would just be the latest example. I am surprised that it still happens in this day and age, especially now that players know how strict the rules have become. But I guess these things do happen though.
Yeah, I think definitely big blow to the Padres, but I think as you've identified, Rohan, the bigger blow is to baseball as a whole. Like Tatis is like an incredibly young player, touted as like one of the next generation of like great baseball players, from his even his first season. And to see him, a player that grew up in the era in which all these players were being busted for PED violations, have his own PED violation very early on in his career is, definitely not a good look for baseball. It really shows that the days of like PED violations constantly affecting players and being prevalent is like very publicly still there. So it's very sad to see. I mean, PEDs really do seem like the thing that's still very prevalent in baseball. But it's just like a huge reminder that that scar is still there and still like clearly very prominent. So I'm disappointed from that. I'm sure the Padres are very disappointed too. But yeah, it's just tough to see like a very young player like that get affected. And this year too, there haven't actually been that many players who have been busted for PED violations. It's the lowest year on record for a while, disregarding the 2020 season, and not very big names. Like there hadn't been someone busted since May with JC Major, the of the Brewers and one other Brewers player in the preseason. But besides that, it was like a pretty good year for like just I guess player ethics or maybe players just not getting caught. So
Well, I would argue that it's actually good for baseball, right? Because if if it somehow got uncovered that he had this in his system, but baseball didn't really do anything about it, that would have been a lot worse. And I think the fact that this PED violation has been made public, I think it sends the message that baseball takes this seriously and they're serious about enforcing the rules. Unless, of course, Ravi, as you mentioned, that there are creative ways that different players get around it and not get caught. I mean, I of course, am not privy to any of those methods, but I do think that making public these disclosures, I think it overall still has the long-term effect of improving the integrity of the game.
that is a good point. And one thing I will say about the methods, I'm not as familiar as I should be with the methods that players use to um, cover up these sort of PED violations. I know that though they know it's very extensive now. The specific drug though that Tatis was using has actually been around since for decades now, and was actually used during the East Germany state-sponsored doping program. So I think this one, in this specific case, wasn't actually a very sophisticated use of PEDs, or didn't seem like it to me. So maybe that's actually a good sign for baseball that you had this top player and he actually wasn't doing something that was new or innovative or out of the realm of our existing detection methods or existing suite of drugs that we look for.
Yeah, it's because I was actually reading a little about it in a Sports Illustrated article. What they mentioned is that clostebol is actually kind of like, I mean, maybe not popular, but like one of the reasons people use it is because it actually it actually results in less estrogen byproduct when you elevate the levels of testosterone, which I guess tends to make it a little harder to detect with drug tests. And kind of going back to what you were saying, it definitely sounds like not only all of baseball is really disappointed, but really acutely the San Diego the Padres. If you even actually listen to what the general manager was actually saying, it was actually what is it? Yeah, he even wrote quote like that's his story, like when they're saying like, well, what had happened about because Tatis gave that excuse about taking it for ringworm, and then the Padres GM AJ Preller literally said that's quote that's his story. And keep in mind that the reason Tatis was on the kind of injury list was because of and presumably some off-season motorcycle accident where he like broke his wrist, which kind of had its own little like drama associated with it, and it didn't seem like the Padres were that happy. So this has really got to be a double thing, and it definitely looks like from like they were very public about their comments and how disappointed they were. Um, so you really have to see because again, like you guys said, I mean, this was a season where they really could have had like Manny Machado, Juan Soto, and Fernando Tatis all in the postseason potentially. And now it's possible they might not even get to that step. So yeah, so it's definitely, I guess if you're a Padres fan, it must really sting right now. And especially, coming from a player who like Ravi and Rowan were saying are really one of the faces of like the kind of next generation of all-star baseball players, right? And to see that kind of happen right away kind of like kicks the legs right out of that table. So it is really disappointing. And it's going to be something that unfortunately shadows him for the rest of his career when you get caught really early doing things like this. It just, I mean, all of a sudden, this is many years down the line, but like Cooperstown's really off the table already for him. And not just that, but like I said, like kind of that whole dream season for the Padres is also not looking too hot right now. So just really disappointing for them, and like you said, really disappointing for the integrity of the game. Though again, it is important for them to catch it, and I'm glad they were able to catch it, especially with cluster ball, which again seems to be something people take to really avoid getting caught.
This also could, I can imagine, greatly impact like his even just the awards he'd win. Like, if he's in the running for, let's say, NL MVP, like that's going to be a huge asterisk all of a sudden. And he definitely has shown the capability to be in the running for one of the major awards in baseball. But I think now every time when he gets back from his injury, people are going to be thinking about that, and that could also impact his long-term career earnings now. So because he's definitely going to have a huge asterisk even if he puts up the numbers for all these trophies, and teams might be less likely to put up with these big contract or make him sign these big contracts if he doesn't do these sort of things, and also have the asterisks of future PEDs use, future suspensions, etc.
So I do have a quick question, right? Because when Tatis signed that 14-year contract, we actually discussed that on this episode and the kind of the legacy for MLB huge contracts. What kind of role does this really play in that? I mean, I feel like we were talking about Chris Sale having like a 5-year huge contract, and that was a very different case. Here's like a 14-year contract with him. He just broke his wrist. He's gonna have another 80-game suspension. I mean, does that? I feel like that has to raise some questions about the wisdom of such long contracts. Which, when again, it's just another example, especially the younger player. There's just so much unknown about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been against huge contracts in general. Like anything above 10 years, I think for any player, I don't care how good the player is, I don't think it's a good deal. It's just too much time, right? Like I think like 5, 6, 7 years, like that used to be like what baseball was about, like 5, 6 years, 7-year contract, 8 years at best. Like that's what we used to see a lot. And now all of a sudden we're seeing these like lifetime contracts. Like when I say lifetime, I mean like 13, 14 years, like almost spanning the whole career or most of the career. So I don't agree with that personally. I think it's always good to kind of break it down into segments and kind of go from there. I think anytime you all of a sudden go into that much money that you're committing, like you don't even know. Like for most of these players, like we have no idea. It's very likely that most of these players by like halfway through the contract, since the contract is so long, like halfway through that contract, they're not going to even be like a star player anymore. Look at Miguel Cabrera in the early 2010s. He was like an MVP candidate. Now he's still on the same contract, and now the Tigers are terrible. Cabrera's gotten older, so he's no longer the same player he was earlier, obviously. But the Tigers are basically stuck with that salary still for another year or so. Next year is when his contract officially comes off the books. I guess he has one more year in 2023, but he's not even the same Miguel Cabrera. So you signed Fernando Tatis to a 14-year contract. You're signing Mookie Betts to a 12-year contract if you're the Dodgers. Juan Soto's probably going to get like a 14, 15-year contract. Even if they're young, like how do you even know like 6, 7 years down the road they're going to be the same player? Like you don't.
And even if they're in the early 20s, I mean, these extended contracts puts them firmly in their 30s when these contracts expire.
Yeah, I don't know. Like that's why I'm honestly like with Aaron Judge, we're sitting with the New York Yankees. He's going to get a big contract, but something just tells me, and maybe this is just sort of like what I'm sort of thinking. I don't think Aaron Judge is going to replicate the season he just had. I think he's going for a contract year. He's very motivated, but I wouldn't be surprised afterward. Like he'll still be a good player, but I don't think he'll come close to like breaking the home run, like hitting 60 home runs or anything like that again. I think this is just sort of like a contract thing. And he's also 30 right now. So like I just think long-term contracts in general are just not a good idea for any player. And I've always been kind of adamant on that. And
Yeah, you can kind of see too with the Juan Soto contract negotiations, right? He was offered a $500 million 15-year contract and turned it down. And honestly, in terms of career earnings, he probably should turn it down. Like he is more likely to get a higher average salary per year if he signs two smaller contracts. And he definitely did the math. He's like, I get more flexibility. He could even re-sign with the team that he wants to if he can, but he can get the flexibility, move to a more competitive team, still get a ton of money, and not get cheated out of more money by potentially if he is at the end of his first contract still very good and still commanding a high market value. So I think with the Juan Soto situation, you can kind of see that players are kind of recognizing this is not necessarily the contract that they want to do. But at the same time, teams are taking huge risks too. We saw with with the Tatis, it's definitely not worked out so far, his contract extension. And if it continues like this, you continue with significant injuries or another PED suspension, it wouldn't have been worth it too. So I think both parties risk, there is risk involved in both parties, but I am I think it's not necessarily a good thing overall. But for teams, like if you just look at the money, it looks great because like Tatis, he's going to be making actually a pretty cheap salary at the end of his contract. He might not be that good, but he will be very cheap. And if he does, if you're betting on his career longevity and he does work out, like you have this incredible cornerstone to build for the next 10 years. And in terms of marketability too, that's going to be insane. Like the local area is really going to love him. You can sell all these tickets, jerseys, etc. So it goes both ways.
Yeah. I mean, I think just one other thing before we move on, but basically, like I think on the show a few weeks ago when Juan Soto was still with the Nationals and we were talking about where he would go, I specifically was saying the Padres because of pairing him in the outfield with Soto and Tatis. So that's just very disappointing, not getting to see that this season and having Machado, as you say, the Padres really looked like a team that could really challenge the Dodgers this year. So now it's going to be very hard. And yeah, and now for the whole rest of his career, he's going to have to deal with this. So it's just kind of disappointing to see it, right? Like a young player, such an exciting player to watch, kind of, I wouldn't say ruin his career or anything like that. Like, I don't think he's done that, but I mean, now he's just definitely like made people question a lot of his moves going forward. And that's unfortunate. Like the whole rest of his career is going to always kind of be a little tainted in people's eyes. So yeah, and it's unfortunate situation. Hopefully he learns from it and comes back in 2023 ready, but it's an unfortunate situation altogether. But yeah, no, this was our episode this week. It was a lot of fun. I think we kind of went over a couple topics and time wise, but it was a good discussion. So yeah, we'll be back again next week. We are very excited as football season is around the corner. So we will have our episode where we preview the season. You definitely want to hear that because last season I predicted the Tennessee Titans to have the 1 seed in the playoffs. So we know
And
what
then
we're talking
Yearbomb
about.
predicted that the Lions would make the playoffs, which the team that went 0-8 to start the season after that very prediction.
Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, so we will be back next week to talk a week of sports, but we are excited about football season. I mean, we're all football experts, so we live and breathe football every week. So we are very excited to have that back. Yes, New England Patriots. But yes, all right. Until then, we will be back next week. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye.
All right, peace, everyone.